afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this week's session of Midweek Money Matters. My name is Katrina Boyer. I'm the Investor Education Coordinator for the Pennsylvania Department of Banking and Securities, and I'm thrilled to have you today as we start to talk about Fintech or financial technology. Fintech is one of those things that I get questions about just about every time I present, and we thought that as we start to move into doing things in person again, that financial technology might be something that we want to be able to share as we start to move on into sort of this post-COVID timeframe. So without further ado, we're going to go ahead. We'll talk about Fintech today. We're going to talk about how we can use Fintech in many different ways to be able to do our financial transactions. So we will first define Fintech. Fintech is a word that's used to describe technology that can help us to improve and better use financial services for people and businesses. Now, if you want a more thorough description, I would invite you to check out the Investopedia information and make sure that you take a look at that. Investopedia.com, I found, has some fantastic information about financial technology and can certainly provide more information than what we can cover in a 30-minute webinar. Midweek Money Matters are designed specifically to give enough information that you can be sort of encouraged to get more information. We certainly obviously can't cover everything in a 30-minute time frame, although we do try to cover as much as we can. So today we're going to explore what Fintech or financial technology entails. Then we're going to talk about what the right technology is for each of us, because there's a lot of different options out there. We're going to talk about the importance of privacy policies and terms and conditions. I know that tends to be a topic that none of us really wants to think about, but it is important that we understand it and read the information that's available. And then finally, we'll wrap it up with some reminders about safety and security while we use financial technology as well as other applications and the internet in general. Sorry about that, I kind of drew this blank. So we want to make sure that we review sort of cybersecurity in making sure that we stay on track when we're using Fintech as well as other applications. So, but the reality is that Fintech can help us in so many different ways. It can help us with creating a spending plan. It can help us to determine how much do I need to save in order to be able to reach that goal of paying for holiday spending without going into debt? Or maybe our goal is to take a vacation. My daughter and son-in-law are so excited because they finally reached their savings goal to take a nice long vacation before they start to plan to have children. So, you know, using Fintech to reach those goals is a great way to be able to put those goals in motion. We also can use Fintech to invest for long-term goals. We can use it to pay our bills, and we can even use it to send money back and forth to people that we're close to. It's become super simple to be able to divide the cost of dinner out and be able to send money to one another so that we don't have to ask for 3 different checks when we go to a restaurant. These are all great ways that financial technology can help us through our everyday lives. So let's start with setting those goals. Fintech applications can help us to plan and set those goals individually, as a couple, or as a group. It helps us to hold one another accountable, and it can really let us see exactly where we stand with each of the spending categories that we create. So if I'm getting towards the end of my month and I want to know how much have I spent on groceries, then I can take a look at my goal and my spending plan pretty simply and see, oh, I still, I need to be careful because I've only got about another $50 for what I've allotted in my spending plan. Again, it can really help us see how we're doing with each of the different goals and plans that we've set aside and put in motion. And then, I don't know about you, but I've always been one to throw spare change that I get from paying cash into a jar. Wouldn't it be cool if there was an app that allowed me to put that spare change off into an account? The good news is that is actually a thing that we can do with many different apps. When we make a purchase at a store, we can actually set the application to target and recognize, okay, Katrina spent $8.59. So there's 41 cents that will round it to the next dollar, and it can take that money and sweep that change right into my standalone savings account. Not only that, with savings apps, I can schedule automatic deposits based on the schedule that I want to set. So maybe I want to set the transfer from one account into my savings account every time I get paid. I can set it up that way. I can set it up to deposit money on the 1st and 15th or whatever defined days I want to do. The reality is, when it comes to savings applications, the opportunities are phenomenal, and there are so many choices that I would encourage you, if you're starting to think about using financial technology to help with some of your savings goals, I would encourage you to research the different applications so that you know what's available to you. Again, Fintech can help you pay anyone, anywhere. Whether you're paying a monthly loan, maybe you have a car payment that you want to set to be paid at a specific time. You can set it to automatically do that, or you can go into the app itself and you can pay it on demand with just a couple of mouse clicks or a couple of touches to your screen. You can pay for a purchase at a local store using your smartphone or your smartwatch or whatever smart device you want to use. And like I said earlier, you can pay a friend for your share of the restaurant bill. There are many different applications out there, Venmo, PayPal. There are, I think you can pay through Facebook now. It's kind of incredible to see all the different ways that I can send money from one person to another using financial technology or an app from my app store. Another really cool thing that we can do is we can use financial technology or fintech to invest. That's where we can really make investing simple and easy to do. We can simplify by investing small amounts of money. There's one application that actually will take that change that I mentioned in the savings app. It will actually take that change from every transaction, sweep it into an investment account, and when you reach a certain dollar threshold in that account, it will automatically invest it for you in the way that you've set up for it to do. So we can make investing a habit that can be fun and educational at the same time. So setting up these investment applications can be a great way for us to learn about investing while we start to save and invest for our long-term goals. Many of the applications that are available have an investor education sort of portal that is really great to help us learn about saving and investing for our long-term goals. And it can give us the information and the knowledge that we need to be able to do that. And the reality is we're relying more and more on our smart devices to do many, many different things. So it kind of is a natural transition to start to think about using our smart devices to help us reach those long-term goals. So what's cool is we can set applications to sweep that change. We can set it to automatically invest into the choice of funds that you may have. Each individual application is going to have different types of funds that you'll be able to invest in. So you want to make sure that whatever application you choose to go with is going to support the funds that you want to invest in. And the other thing that we can do is we can also set our investment application to automatically transfer a certain amount of money at a specific time. Again, kind of like we can do with our savings. Instead of automatically transferring money into savings, we can automatically transfer, say, $50 every pay period into our investment accounts that we can then use to invest our funds in. And some of the applications allow for exchange-traded funds, different mutual funds. There are even some applications that will allow you to invest in certain stocks. So that's a great way for us to sort of get our toes wet investing in actual stocks, because it makes it really easy to do. And you can monitor what's happening with the market and what's happening with the value of your specific stocks. You can see that and watch it as the value ebbs and flows. What's really important that we remember, though, when we're watching, is that we want to remember that investing is for long term, and we want to be sure that we're not swept up with the emotion of a big dip in the market, because that can be a roller coaster that we may not want to get involved in. So we want to make sure that we keep in mind that investing is really for investing. So we need to make sure that we're choosing the right application and the right platform. But we want to start by knowing exactly what applications can do for us and how can we use them. There are many applications available that we can use on our smart devices, but maybe we also want to be able to work on from a regular computer. So sometimes you can actually do both. Some applications have a web-based platform that you can access in addition to using your smart device. So again, if we do our homework and we're aware of the options, then that prepares us to be able to put that list together so that we know what our wants and needs are. And then at some point, we may have to actually prioritize what options are more important to me than others. So maybe your focus for the financial technology that's right for you is going to be on investing more than budgeting. So if that's what's important to you, you can make that list in a priority order so that you know what you're able to do and what applications are going to meet your needs the best. So as we start to look at financial technology options and the different applications that we're going to use, I would encourage you to start with your favorite search engine. Mine happens to be Google, just because that's kind of all I've really ever used. And you can use terms like Fintech application, investment application reviews, or what are the top Fintech applications for my Apple device, or what are the top budgeting applications for couples. Those types of terms are going to bring up a list of applications that are available for download. Now, when you're researching, I want you to understand that you want to make sure that you're downloading applications directly from your smart device, not to a computer that is different from your smart device, because it's important when we download applications that we download applications directly from the App Store, because if we download them from other places, they may actually not be the application that we think we're getting, and it may include malware that could disrupt our device, the functionality of our device, really. So we want to make sure that we are intentional about understanding that when we're talking about research, we're talking about using a computer or a smart device. But when we get ready to download the application, we want to make sure that we are downloading from the App Store. So once you've had a chance to sort of see what options are out there, and you compare the options for each application to what your needs are, you can sort of whittle it down to maybe 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 different options that meet your list requirements, and then go to your favorite search engine and search the name of the application and the word consumer reviews, because we want to make sure that we're looking at reviews that are not necessarily coming from the application site, because those aren't always as authentic as we would like them to be. So when you're looking at consumer reviews, you need to remember that not all reviews are equal. Again, sometimes people are paid an incentive to write a good review. Another thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're reading multiple reviews. And then we also want to look at reviews from reputable sites. That goes a long way in making sure that we are getting information that's unbiased and legitimate. So another thing that you may want to do is research from websites that offer reviews. So CNN, or there's a lot of different technology websites that review different applications. That can really help as well, as far as being able to see exactly what the top ones are. And that kind of goes back to this slide, where we actually read the reviews written commercially, because that can be very helpful as far as knowing the ins and outs and some of the pros and cons to different applications. But we also need to keep in mind that no application is necessarily going to meet all of our needs. But once you find the apps that you're considering, I encourage you to go to the App Store and take a look at what you see. So the images that you see here on this slide are screenshots from my phone, my smart device from yesterday. So you can see in the left-hand image are 2 different budgeting applications. Now, they both have 5-star ratings, which is fantastic. One of them has 680 reviews. The other has more than 3,000 reviews. Understanding that just because an application has a 5-star review doesn't mean it's the end-all be-all. Sometimes really good applications may have less than 5 stars, but it's because they've got thousands and thousands of reviews. And let's be real, we can't please everybody all the time, right? So keep that in mind. Now, that image on the left is the budgeting apps that I mentioned. The image on the right, really, I just wanted to show that there are so many different options available that it's important that we take the steps that I've mentioned already, reviewing the applications from the technical side, as well as reviewing the comments about the applications off of the application site, and then reading the comments and reviews from the application site as well. So you want to make sure that you are reviewing the total number of reviews and the reviews. And then you also need to look at, and this is where it gets kind of like a snooze fest, reading those terms and conditions, reading the privacy policies, and understanding all of that is really important, because that's where we learn exactly what the company is doing with our information, how they're protecting it, what are the fees they're going to charge us. Those types of things are really important. So let's take a look at a list of things that we need to be aware of when we look at privacy policies. So this list I pulled directly from the California Attorney General's office, and the link to that is here at the bottom of this website. If you would like a copy of today's PowerPoint presentation, at the end I'll provide you with my email address. You can send me an email and I will go ahead and send that to you as a PDF, because these are some really important things that we need to be concerned about. What information of mine is going to be collected? Is the application going to be wanting my social security number, my date of birth, you know, my full legal name? Are they going to be looking for my account numbers? If I'm using a budgeting application and I'm not connecting or paying bills through that application, does the application really need the information to my financial institution? The answer is maybe not. So we want to think about how we're going to use the application and what information of mine is going to be required, because we've heard it time and again that websites, companies, databases all get hacked. And so we want to make sure that the information that's required is information that the application really needs. Then we want to think about how is this information being collected and how is it being protected from criminals who want to get my personal information. And then we want to see how are they using my information? Are they going to sell my information to third-party companies? Am I going to suddenly download this one application and see my junk email increase tenfold? Because that happens. And then, so as we're reviewing the privacy policies, is there a way that we can opt out of providing some of that information? That can be very helpful. If I don't have to provide my personal information and I can still use the application effectively, that might be a really good option. And then we want to know how long the policy is good for. If it's only good for the next 6 months, I want to make sure that I remember to go back and look at it at the new policy to make sure that I'm still comfortable with the terms and conditions. So it's really important that we take a look at this stuff. And as you see here, it really is a snooze fest. Nobody wants to read that. But the reality is, if we don't read it, we can be leaving ourselves open to a lot of problems. So speaking of a lot of problems, terms and conditions is another thing that we want to take a look at. Again, snooze fest, but these are the rules that we have to follow in order to be able to use the application. And what many of us don't realize is that the terms and conditions can be legally binding. So maybe you're signing up for something and you think that you can do it on a month-to-month basis. But the reality is, according to the terms and conditions, when you decide you don't want to use the application anymore, there's going to be a fee associated with that. If we don't read it, we won't know it, and we can be on the hook for some of those expenses. So keep in mind, knowing what's in the terms and conditions and being comfortable with what you're reading is really important. so as we start to wrap it up, I do want to make sure that we are cognizant of the rules of cybersecurity. So we want to avoid using public Wi-Fi for transactions that involve our personal information or our financial information. An example of that is, maybe I want to check my budget to make sure that I still have it in my budget to do this event that I want to do for entertainment. If I'm using public Wi-Fi and my application has access to my financial institution, criminals who are using the same public Wi-Fi may be able to get that information that we're sharing online. So avoiding Wi-Fi for those types of personal transactions is a great way to protect our information. And the reality is that more and more our cell phone plans provide us with unlimited data. So we don't necessarily need public Wi-Fi in order to be able to run our apps. Another thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we keep the device and the applications updated. Often when updates are released, it is because there has been a breach discovered, a weakness, and the application creators want to make sure that they're protecting the application. So we want to make sure that we keep everything updated. It's sort of like protecting your house and keeping a fence around it so that you avoid letting bad guys in. We need to keep that updated just like we keep our fences protecting us up and secure. And then we want to make sure that we are securing our handheld devices with the strongest passwords or logins that we can. If it's a thumbprint, if it's facial recognition, if it's a 12-digit number or password, whatever it is, we want to use the most secure way of doing that so that if we happen to lose those devices or someone happens to help themselves to our devices, we can have it protected. Another thing that we may want to do is know how to wipe the device remotely. If you need to, call your cell phone provider and be able to remotely wipe out the information because you don't want a criminal to get a hold of it, that can be very helpful. So let's talk about passwords for the next minute or two. Using strong passwords is critically important. It needs to be at least 14 characters. It needs to be a combination of letters, numbers, symbols, capital, lower, whatever you can do. If you have a sentence that means something special to you, or you have, maybe you love to water ski, you can take a combination of letters and symbols and create a sentence or a phrase that can be very helpful. Using unique passwords for every application or login that you use is critical. Two-factor authentication is really helpful. If I am trying to log into an application that I don't normally go into, setting up that second set of login can be really helpful. So maybe you log in and then you have to answer a question in order to be able to access the site. Or maybe the site calls you or sends you a text message with a code. Those are all examples of two-factor authentication. So we also want to think about changing our passwords frequently. Those of us who are Commonwealth employees, we know that we have to change our passwords something like every 60 days. There's a reason for that. There's a reason we need to change our personal passwords as well. And understand that your email password is really, really critical. I like to think of it sort of as the keys to my kingdom, because if I forget my password to an application, one of the first things they're going to do is send me a link to reset my password. Well, if a criminal gets a hold of my email password, they can change a lot of different passwords and they can gain access to my information. So that's really important. I always like to provide resources during, because again, 30 minutes is not a lot of time to be able to share information. So I mentioned Investopedia. Investopedia.com has some really great resources. Consumer Action is another organization that produces some fantastic information. So they can be reached at consumer-action.org, and they have great publications. And then the Federal Reserve Bank has some information specifically about financial technology and how we can use it. So you can find that at consumercomplianceoutlook.org. As we continue to wrap it up, our Office of Consumer Services is always willing to answer your questions during regular business hours. You can call us at 800-PA-BANKS, and a real live person should answer your call. You can also go to our website, dobs.pa.gov, and we have publications that are available for download. So I would encourage you to check out some of those resources. I am reminding everyone, if you're experiencing financial issues due to COVID, there is an emergency rental assistance program, and there's also a homeowners assistance fund that is being offered by the Pennsylvania Housing and Finance Agency. I would encourage you to check out the two links that are contained here if you have any questions about COVID-19 related financial assistance resources. Next week, we're going to be talking about the top investment frauds we need to be aware of. We all hear about affinity fraud and pyramid schemes and free lunch programs. We're going to be talking about some additional frauds that we need to be aware of in the investment world. That's next week. At the same time next week, you can register at padobs.eventbrite.com, and we will welcome you at that time. I do want to thank you all so much for your time and attention today. I realize it's right in the middle of lunchtime, so you are giving up some of your precious time. I appreciate that. This is my contact information. If you have questions, you want to email me separately, katrboyer@pa.gov, or you can call me at 717-214-5565. I do want to stop the recording now, and if anyone has any questions that they want to ask